I returned home after a 26-hour nursing shift and found a second refrigerator in the kitchen. My son's wife said with disdain, "That one is mine. From now on, buy your own food." She put sticky labels with her name on everything I bought, forgetting that they were living there without paying a single dollar in rent. So I prepared a surprise that made them wake up crying. I got home after 26 hours straight at the hospital. 26 hours saving lives, holding shaky hands, cleaning wounds that weren't mine. My feet were burning inside those white shoes that were once new. My back was a knot of pain. My hands smelled like sanitizer, and that weariness that gets into your bones when you are no longer young. I am 67 years old. I'm a nurse, and I thought the hardest part of my life was already over. I was wrong. When I opened the door to my kitchen, the one I cleaned 1,000 times, where I cooked for every one of my son's birthdays, where I cried over my husband's death, I saw something that shouldn't be there. A new, shiny, silver refrigerator right next to mine. I stood in the doorway, my bag hanging from my shoulder, trying to understand. Had they bought a refrigerator without telling me? Why? Hours worked perfectly. Then I heard her voice. "That one is mine, Catherine," my daughter-in-law. She came out of the hallway with that look I knew too well, that mix of disdain and boredom, as if I were an annoying fly in her space. "What did you say?" I asked. My voice sounded raspy. I hadn't spoken to anyone outside the hospital for hours. "The refrigerator is mine." She crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe. "From now on, buy your own food, Clara." She didn't call me mother-in-law. She didn't call me Mom. She called me by my first name, as if we were roommates, as if this wasn't my house. I opened the old refrigerator, my refrigerator, and the air went out of my chest. Everything, absolutely everything I had bought 3 days earlier had yellow, sticky labels with her name written on them in black marker. Catherine. The cheese, the tomatoes, the yogurt, the beans, the chicken, even the butter. "What is this?" I whispered. "What I told you. This is my food. You buy yours." She shrugged. "It's not fair that I have to share what I buy with my money." Her money. Catherine didn't work. She hadn't worked a single day since she married my son, Robert, 2 years ago. Robert was the one who was supposed to bring in the money. Although lately that money seemed to come out of my own savings every time I lent them some for gas, for groceries, for an emergency. Robert, I tried to call my son, but he was already there, in the doorway of his bedroom, looking at me with those eyes I no longer recognized. The same eyes that looked at me with love when he was a child. Now there was just discomfort. "Mum, don't make a scene. Catherine is right. Everyone should buy their own. It's more organized this way." I felt the floor moving. "But I bought this. I paid for this week's groceries." "And that's why it has your name on it, right?" said Catherine, pointing to the labels. "Now we all know what belongs to whom. Easier." I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip off every single one of those yellow labels and throw them in her face. But I was so tired, so terribly tired. I just nodded. I went to my bedroom. I closed the door. And for the first time in years, I sat on the edge of my bed and let myself feel the full weight of what had just happened. They were living in my house, the house I bought alone, with my nurse's salary, after my husband died and left me with nothing but debt and an 8-year-old son with chronic asthma. I worked double shifts, triple shifts. I mopped hospital floors at 3 in the morning to pay the mortgage. I skipped meals so Robert could have his medicine. And now they were charging me for eating in my own kitchen. I took off my shoes. My feet were swollen, red. I had a new blister on my left heel. I didn't even remember when I got it. I heard laughter in the living room. Catherine and Robert were watching television. I heard the sound of the microwave, the smell of popcorn. Popcorn that I couldn't eat because it had her name on it. I closed my eyes. And in that silence, in that darkness of my own room, something inside me began to change. I didn't know it yet. But that night, exhausted and humiliated, was the last night I let them treat me like a stranger in my own home. Because sometimes silence is not surrender. Sometimes it's just the calm before the storm. If this story is touching your heart, subscribe to the channel to stay with me until the end. Because what's coming, nobody expected it. Not even me. I thought the labels were rock bottom, that they couldn't sink me any lower. How naive I was. 3 days later, I returned from another shift at the hospital. This time, only 12 hours, but they had been 12 hours of hell. A child with severe burns. An old man who died while I held his hand because he had no family. I came home wanting only a hot cup of tea and silence. I went into the bathroom, and there they were. More yellow labels. On the shampoo, the soap, the toothpaste, even the toilet paper. Catherine. I stood paralyzed, looking at my own toothbrush, the only object without a label, as if it were the last thing I had left in the world. I left the bathroom. I went to the kitchen. The pots had labels, the pans, the glasses, the plates. I opened the cutlery drawer, even the forks, the damned forks. Looking for something? Catherine's voice sounded right behind me. I jumped. I hadn't heard her arrive. Catherine, this is too much. Too much. She shook her head with that smile that didn't reach her eyes. Clara, I'm just protecting my things. You know how it is. Sometimes things get lost. They get mixed up. This way, everyone knows what belongs to whom. But I bought these pots. I bought these plates 20 years ago. Oh, she shrugged. Then put your name on them too. I put mine on what's mine. And what exactly did you buy? The words came out harder than I intended. Her eyes narrowed. Watch your tone, mother-in-law. I'm your son's wife. I deserve respect. Respect. That word echoed in my head as she turned and walked back to the living room, where the television was still blaring. That night, Catherine cooked. The smell filled the whole house. Turkey chili, my favorite turkey chili. The one I had taught her to make when they first got married. In those first few months, when we still pretended to be a happy family. I stayed in my bedroom. My stomach was growling. I hadn't eaten dinner. I only had coffee at the hospital. I thought about going out, about serving myself some. It was chilly. She had used my recipe. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not after the labels. Not after understanding that every bite I took from that kitchen would be a defeat. I heard their laughter. Robert and her. They were talking about a new streaming series, about going on vacation to Florida. If we sell your mother's car, we could save up for a better hotel, said Catherine. Silence. I don't know if she'll want to sell it, Robert replied in a weak voice. Oh, honey, that car is old. She hardly uses it. We need it more. I didn't hear what my son answered. I only heard that he didn't defend me. The next morning I went downstairs early. I had the day off. I needed to talk to Robert, alone, without her. I found him in the kitchen drinking coffee. My coffee, from my coffee maker, which now had a yellow label. Son, we need to talk. He looked up. I saw the dark circles under his eyes. He looked tired, older than his 32 years. Mum, if this is about the labels, It's not just about the labels, Robert. It's about everything. I sat across from him. It's about how you both speak to me, how you treat me. This is my house. I know. Do you know? Really, because it doesn't look like it. I took a deep breath. You don't pay rent. You don't pay utilities. You don't pay property taxes. Nothing. And now it turns out I can't even use my own soap. He rubbed his face. Mum, Catherine is my wife. I have to support her. If you don't like how she handles things, maybe you should think about finding your own place. The world stopped. My own place? I don't mean it in a bad way, but we are a young couple. We need our space, privacy. We can't always be worried about whether you mind how we organize the house. My house, Robert. My house. I already know it's legally your house, Mum. You don't have to repeat it. His tone became irritated. But it's also where I live, where my wife lives. And frankly, sometimes I feel like Catherine is right. You're very old-fashioned. You don't understand how modern families work. I got up. I didn't say anything else. What could I say? I went up to my room. I took a box out of the closet. A box I hadn't opened in years. Inside were photos. Robert as a baby. Robert with his nebulizer. Those enormous eyes looking at me with fear every time he couldn't breathe. Robert at his high school graduation. At his first communion. At the hospital. After the surgery that saved his life when he was 11 years old. The operation that cost $45,000, which I paid for by selling my car, taking out loans, working at 2 hospitals at once. I ran my fingers over the photos, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel love. I felt something colder, more dangerous. I felt clarity, because my son had just told me to look for another place to live, in the house that I bought. With the money I earned taking care of the sick while he slept soundly, knowing that his mother would never let him fall. I put the photos away. That night Catherine cooked again, this time chicken enchiladas. The smell was a dagger in my empty stomach. I didn't leave my room. I stayed there in the dark, listening to their laughter. And I started planning. Because if 39 years of being a nurse had taught me anything, it was this. Pain is not healed by ignoring it. It is healed by cutting out what is rotten. And in that house, something had rotted. But what I discovered 2 days later, hidden in my son's drawer, would change everything forever. On Saturday, I decided to clean, not because the house needed it, but because I needed to do something with my hands. Something that would make me feel like I still had control over some corner of my own life. Catherine and Robert had gone out. To look at some things for the apartment, they said. I didn't ask what apartment. I wasn't asking anything anymore. I started in the living room, then the bathroom. Then I stopped in front of the door to Robert's room. His room. The one that had been his since he was 8 years old. The one I painted blue because it was his favorite color. The one we filled with football posters and then rock bands. I went in. The bed was unmade, clothes scattered on the floor. It smelled like that sweet perfume Catherine wore. None of my son's scent. The boy who smelled like soap and dirt after playing outside. I started picking up. I folded the clothes. I made the bed. I wiped the furniture. And then I saw the nightstand drawer ajar. I wasn't going to open it. I really wasn't. But something shiny caught my eye inside. The afternoon sun hit it directly, and that gleam caught my attention. I opened the drawer. Papers. Lots of messy papers. Old receipts. Printed photos of Catherine at the beach. In expensive restaurants. In bars. All recent. All while I was lending them money for gas. I kept looking without knowing exactly what I was looking for. And then I saw it. A thick manila envelope with my name written on top in Robert's handwriting. Mum, important documents. I took it out with trembling hands. Inside were the house deeds, the ones I kept in my room, in my filing cabinet. How had they gotten there? Beneath the deeds was another document, a promissory note, notarized, dated 2 years ago. Loan, $75,000. Debtor, Robert Renteria Ochoa. Creditor, Clara Ochoa, widow of Renteria. Concept, initial investment for auto parts import business. I remembered everything. 2 years ago, Robert arrived excited. He had a plan. A friend had proposed a business to him, importing auto parts from the United States. He was going to be a millionaire. He just needed $75,000 to start. I had that money. I had saved it for 10 years. It was for my retirement, for when I couldn't work anymore. But he was my son, my only son. I'll pay you back in 6 months, Mum. With interest. You'll see. We signed before a notary because he insisted. So you can see I'm serious, he said. The business never worked. The friend disappeared with part of the money. Robert never mentioned the loan again. And I never asked him, because he was my son. And a mother does not collect what she gives with love, or does she? I kept checking the envelope. There were more papers, bank statements, from 6 months ago, an account I didn't know about, in Robert's name, with regular deposits of $2,500, $3,500. Where was that money coming from if he supposedly wasn't working? And at the bottom of everything, a folded sheet. I unfolded it. It was a printout of text messages between Robert and Catherine. Catherine, I already talked to the realtor. He says this house, in this area, is worth about $500,000. Robert, that's a lot. That's why, honey, your mum is old. She's not going to live forever. And when she dies, who is she going to leave the house to? Robert, me. I'm her only son. Exactly. But why wait? Convince her to sell it. We tell her it's so she can go to a smaller, easier to care for place. She keeps $150,000. We keep $350,000. And with that, we start our real life, far away from here. Robert, I don't know. She's going to be mad. She'll get over it. Besides, what is she going to do? Kick us out? You're her son. She's not going to leave you on the street. We give her a few months of special treatment, soften her up, and that's it. Robert, special treatment. Ha ha ha. Catherine, you'll see. In 2 months she'll be begging us to help her sell. The date of the message, 3 months ago. The labels appeared 2 weeks after that conversation. I dropped the papers. I sat on my son's bed and began to shake. Not from fear, but from rage. Pure, boiling rage that rose from my stomach to my throat. They were pushing me out of my own house. With a plan, step by step, humiliation by humiliation. And my son knew it. He had planned it. I took photos of everything with my phone, the messages, the promissory note, the bank statements, the deeds that had no business being in that drawer. I put everything back exactly as I found it. I closed the drawer, I left the room and went downstairs to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped it. I looked around. The 2 refrigerators, the yellow labels on everything. The house I bought with my pain, with my night shifts, with my knees destroyed from standing 12 hours a day. The house where I raised my son alone after his father died. The son who now wanted to sell it, to leave with his wife, away from me. I wiped away the tears I hadn't realized were falling. And in that moment, something inside me definitively broke, but not in the way they expected. I didn't break down. I broke forward. Because it is one thing to forgive, it is another thing to be stupid. And I had been stupid enough already. I took out my phone. I searched on Google. Eviction attorney, New York City. Several appeared. I chose one. Mr. David Miller. Good reviews. Office near Midtown. I dialed. A secretary answered. Miller Law Firm. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My voice sounded firm. Surprisingly firm. I need an urgent appointment. I want to evict someone from my property. Is it a tenant? No. It's my son. There was a brief silence. I understand. When can you come in? Tomorrow, if possible. Let me see. Yes, we have a slot at 11 o'clock in the morning. I'll be there. I hung up. I heard the front door. They had returned. We're home, Catherine yelled, with that chirpy voice she used when she was in a good mood. Clara, is there any dinner? I took a deep breath. I walked out of the kitchen with a smile. Not yet. Do you want me to make something? Catherine looked at me surprised. Robert, too. Yeah. Anything is fine, my son said. Perfect. I nodded. I'll make some eggs. It'll be ready in a moment. They looked at me strangely. Of course they did. I had barely spoken to them for days, barely left my room. But now I was smiling. Because now I knew something they didn't know. Wars are not won by those who shout the loudest. They are won by those who strike when the enemy lets down their guard. That night I made them dinner. I set the table. I even washed the dishes. Catherine and Robert exchanged confused glances. Are you okay, Mum? He asked. Very well, son. I just thought, you're right. I've been too tense. I'm sorry about that. Catherine smiled, a smile of victory. I'm glad you understand, Clara. In the end, we all want what's best for the family, right? Of course, I replied, looking her straight in the eyes. What's best for the family? I went up to my room, closed the door, and for the first time in weeks I slept soundly, because tomorrow the war began. And they didn't even know they had already lost. What the lawyer told me the next day was the beginning of the end for them. On Monday, at 11 o'clock sharp, I was sitting across from Mr. David Miller. His office smelled of coffee and old paper. He had a huge bookcase full of legal codes. On the wall, his law degree next to a photo with the mayor of New York. He looked serious, but his eyes were kind. Tell me everything, Mrs. Clara. Take your time. And I told him everything. The labels, the messages, the loan they never paid me back, the house in my name. Everything. He took notes. Occasionally he nodded. When I finished, he took off his glasses and looked at me intently. Do you have evidence for all of this? I have photos of the messages. I have the notarized promissory note for the loan. I have the house deeds. Everything is in my name. Do they pay rent? No, nothing. Utilities? No, I pay for everything. Electricity, water, gas, property taxes, internet, everything. He nodded slowly. Ma'am, legally you have every right to evict them. It's your property. They don't have a lease agreement. They don't pay anything. They are what we call occupants without title. He paused. But he is your son. Are you sure about this? I was silent for a moment. Was I sure? I thought about the yellow labels, about the messages planning to sell my house. About Robert telling me to look for another place. Yes, I replied. I'm sure. Good. I need you to sign a power of attorney. We are going to start the legal process. It will take a few weeks, but we can speed things up if they don't cooperate. He opened a folder. We can also claim the loan. With interest, we would be talking about, let me calculate, about $102,000. The figure made me dizzy. That much? The interest accumulates, ma'am, and your son signed a legal promissory note. That is money you can claim. I signed the papers. I paid his retainer fee, $2,500, money I had saved for emergencies. This was an emergency. I left the office with a strange feeling in my chest, like I had just jumped out of a plane without being sure if the parachute was going to open. But there was no turning back. That same evening, I arrived home later than usual. I had stopped by the supermarket. I bought my things, mine, the ones I was going to label if necessary. When I opened the door, I heard voices in the living room. Many voices. I walked in and froze. Catherine's parents, Mr. George and Mrs. Nancy, were sitting on my sofa as if they owned the place. Ah, the mother-in-law has arrived, said Mrs. Nancy with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Good evening, I murmured. Clara, come, sit down, said Catherine, pointing to a chair. A chair. In my own living room. While they occupied the sofas, I sat down. What else could I do? Look, mother-in-law, began Mr. George, a heavy man with a moustache and a booming voice. We gathered here because we need to talk about something important. As a family. As a family. Catherine told us the situation, he continued. And we understand it's difficult for you, but you have to be reasonable. Reasonable about what? I asked. About space, Mrs. Nancy intervened. This house is big, yes, but 3 adults living together. It's complicated. The kids need privacy. They are at an age to start their own family. And you, well, you are in another stage of life. I felt my blood boil. Another stage? Don't take it the wrong way, said Mr. George. We're just saying that maybe it would be better for everyone if you considered options. What options? Catherine leaned forward. There are very nice communities for seniors, Clara. Places where you would be with people your age, with nurses, activities. You wouldn't be alone. A retirement home, I said, without emotion in my voice. It's not a retirement home, Robert quickly said. They are like communities, and you don't have to go far. There is one here in New Jersey near the highway. We went to see it. It's nice. You went to see it? I repeated. Without me? Uncomfortable silence. We wanted to surprise you, said Catherine. Look, we even took pictures. She showed me her phone. Photos of a grey building with gardens, small rooms, elderly people in wheelchairs. I saw myself there, in that place, waiting to die. And this house? I asked with a trembling voice. Well, Robert scratched the back of his neck. Catherine and I would stay here. Eventually, maybe we'll sell it, get something smaller, but that would be later. Right, I said. Later. The important thing is that you would be well cared for, Mrs. Nancy insisted, and the kids could start their real life. And who would pay for the community? I asked. More silence. Well, you have your pension from the hospital, said Catherine, and if you sell your car, that will cover the first few months. Then we'll see. We'll see. My car, the one I bought 5 years ago, the only luxury I had allowed myself in decades. And if I sell the car, how would I get to work? I still work, in case you don't remember. Oh, Clara, sighed Mrs. Nancy. At your age, you should already be thinking about retiring, enjoying life. I am 67 years old, not 80, I retorted. But you work too much, Catherine said in a honeyed voice. You get tired. You get sick. Wouldn't it be better to rest? I looked at my son. He didn't look at me. He looked at the floor. Is that what you want, Robert? For me to leave? He looked up. I saw something in his eyes. Guilt? Shame? Mum, we just want what's best for you. What's best for me? I stood up. Or what's best for you? Don't start with your scenes, Catherine said, rolling her eyes. It's not a scene, Catherine. It's a question. What do you gain if I leave? You gain, she exploded. You gain peace of mind. You gain care. You gain not having to clean this huge house. This house that I bought. Oh, come on. Always the same thing. My house, my house. Catherine also stood up. Yes, it's your house, but it's also where your son lives. Or what? Are you going to kick him out? Catherine, calm down, said Mr. Joss and Mr. George. I won't calm down. I'm sick of this situation. She turned to me. Since I arrived in this house, I have tried to get along with you. But you only know how to play the victim. Everything has to be your way. Well, no, Clara. You're not the only one living here anymore. And if you can't accept it, then yes, maybe you should look for another place. The silence that followed was thick. I looked at Robert. Do you think the same? He rubbed his face. Mum, I think Catherine is right. You can't keep controlling everything. This house, yes, you bought it, but it's also my home. And if I want to live here with my wife, it's my decision. Your decision? I felt something break in my chest. And what am I? A bother? Nobody said that, Mrs. Nancy intervened. You don't have to say it, I murmured. I turned around and went up the stairs. Behind me, I heard Catherine. Oh, she got mad. She'll get over it tomorrow. And soft laughter, as if none of this mattered. I went into my room. I locked the door. And this time, I did cry. I cried like I hadn't cried in years. I cried for the son I raised, for the sleepless nights when he had a fever, for the 3 jobs I worked to pay for his school, for every dollar I saved thinking about his future. I cried until there were no more tears left. And when I finished, I washed my face. I looked in the mirror. My eyes were red, swollen, deep, dark circles. But I also had something new in my gaze. Determination. I took out my phone. I looked up the number for Mr. Miller. I sent him a text message. Mr. Miller, go ahead with everything. I want them out of my house as soon as possible. The answer came in seconds. Understood, Mrs. Clara. We file the lawsuit tomorrow. I put the phone away. I lay down. And before falling asleep, I whispered in the darkness, Forgive me, Robert, but I can't save you from yourself anymore. What happened 3 days later would make Catherine stop smiling forever. The following days were strange. I acted normal, too normal. I said good morning in the mornings. I made my breakfast without complaining about the labels. I left for work. I returned. I locked myself in my room. Catherine was confused. I saw her looking at me several times with a frown, as if trying to figure out what had changed. Robert simply avoided me. He left early. He returned late. When we crossed paths, he averted his gaze. Good. Let them think I had given up. Let them think I had accepted my fate as an annoying old woman who would soon go quietly to a retirement community. But at night, when they were asleep, I worked. I observed. I listened. I investigated. I discovered their routines. Catherine got up at noon. She showered in my main bathroom, which now had a lock on the outside. And she went out, sometimes to the hair salon, sometimes to have coffee with friends. She returned with bags of clothes, Nordstrom, Macy's, brands I could never afford. Robert left early, supposedly to look for work. But he came back smelling of beer, of cigarettes, with red eyes. One Tuesday night, while they were watching a movie in the living room, I slipped back into their room. This time I knew exactly what I was looking for. I opened the nightstand drawer. I checked under the clothes. Nothing. I looked under the bed. Shoe boxes. I opened them one by one. In the third one, I found what I needed. Bank statements, updated until last month. Regular deposits of $3,000 every 15 days. Where was that coming from? I kept looking. There were receipts from bars, from expensive restaurants, one from a hotel in Midtown. A hotel? Why did they need a hotel if they lived here? And then I saw a sealed envelope. I opened it. Inside was a flyer from a real estate agency, pre-sale apartments, Upper East Side area, starting at $465,000. One of the apartments was marked with a red marker, a 3-bedroom, $535,000. On the last page, in Catherine's handwriting, with the sale of the old lady's house, $500,000 approx, minus $120,000 for her. We keep $380,000, plus bank loan, $165,000, $545,000. Perfect. $120,000 for me, from my $500,000 house. The math of my own betrayal, written in red marker. I took photos of everything, the bank statements, the flyer, the hotel receipts. I put everything back exactly where it was. I left the room. They were still in the living room. I heard Catherine laughing at something in the movie. I went up to my room. I downloaded the photos to my laptop. I backed them up to the cloud. And then I did something I never thought I would do. I wrote to Patricia. Patricia was my colleague at the hospital. We had been working together for 15 years. She knew Robert since he was a child. She had watched him grow up. Patty, I need a favor. Do you know anyone who can investigate where some bank deposits are coming from? She replied in minutes. My cousin is an accountant. He works for the IRS. What do you need? I need to know if my son is declaring that income and where it comes from. Send me the details. I'll tell you tomorrow. I sent her photos of the bank statements. The next morning, Patricia called me during my break at the hospital. Clara, your son is in trouble. What did they find? Those deposits come from a shell company, one that is dedicated to false invoicing. It's tax fraud. If the IRS finds out, he's going to get a huge fine, maybe even jail time. My blood ran cold. Jail time? This is serious, Clara. Your son is receiving black money. Someone is using him to launder money or to evade taxes, and he is the one who will pay if this explodes. How do you know he knows? Because he signs the receipts. He has an account where the money arrives. He can't say he didn't know. I hung up, trembling. My son. My son was involved in something illegal. That night I came home determined to talk to him, alone. But when I walked in, I heard raised voices in the kitchen. I told you you had to be more discreet. Robert's voice sounded desperate. Don't talk to me like that, Catherine replied. It's not my fault your mum is so nosy. What happened? Robert asked. Nothing. Just that I saw her looking at my phone the other day, I'm sure. When I went to the bathroom, my phone was in a different position. You're paranoid. I'm not paranoid. That old lady knows something. I can feel it. Silence. What could she know? Robert asked, but his voice sounded nervous. I don't know, but we have to speed things up. Talk to her. Convince her to sell the house now, or to transfer it to your name. Something. The longer it takes, the more risk there is. I can't pressure her anymore. She's already mad. Well, find a way. Catherine's voice turned cold. Because if this falls through, Robert, I'm leaving. I didn't come to live with your mum forever. I came because you promised me a life, an apartment, travel, and so far all I have are labels in a kitchen that isn't even mine. I love you, Katie. You know that. Love doesn't pay the bills. Money does. I backed away from the door before they discovered me. I went up to my room with a pounding heart. I had all the pieces now, the illegal money, the plans to sell the house, the pressure for me to leave. Everything was connected. I took out my laptop, I opened a new document, and I started writing a timeline. With dates, with evidence, with photos, every humiliation, every lie, every yellow label. I spent the entire night doing that, organizing my defense as if it were a case at the hospital, systematizing the pain. At dawn, I printed everything. 3 copies, one for the lawyer, one for me, one for one. Well, I'd see what for. I showered, I got dressed, I made coffee. When I went down to the kitchen, Robert was already there. He looked terrible, sunken eyes, unshaven. Good morning, I said calmly. He looked at me surprised. Good morning, Mum. I made my breakfast. Toast, black coffee, fruit. He kept looking at me. Are you okay? He finally asked. I looked him in the eyes. Very well, son. Why? I don't know. You look different. I smiled. I slept well. That's all. Lie. I hadn't slept at all. But he didn't have to know that. I finished my breakfast. I washed my plate. I grabbed my things. I'm leaving for the hospital. I'll be back tonight. Mum. He stopped me before I left. About the other day, about the community, you don't have to decide now. I know, I replied. Don't worry. And I left. In the car, before starting the engine, I called Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller, this is Clara. I have more information. I think my son is involved in something illegal. I have evidence. Come to the office, today if you can. I'm on my way. I hung up. I started the car, and as I drove through the streets of New York, with the morning sun hitting my face, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Power. Because I was no longer the foolish old woman who put up with everything for love. Now I was the lioness, protecting what was hers. And no one was going to drive this lioness out of her den. But what was about to happen would not only get them out of my house, it would bring them to their knees in front of me. On Thursday, I returned from a 14-hour shift. It had been brutal. 2 code blues, a patient who didn't make it, a family crying in my arms asking me why God had taken her. I didn't have the answers. I never did. I arrived home dragging my feet. Everything hurt. My back, my knees, even my soul. All I wanted was a hot bath and sleep. I opened the door. The smell hit me first. Food, rotisserie chicken, potatoes. That smell that automatically makes you salivate. I walked into the kitchen and froze. My refrigerator was open. Empty. Completely empty. On the floor next to the garbage can were my things. The yogurt I had bought 2 days ago. The ham. The cheese. The tomatoes. The tortillas. Everything thrown in a black bag. What? I whispered. Oh, you're home. Catherine walked into the kitchen, wiping her hands with a napkin. She was wearing a new blouse. Expensive. I could see it in the tag that still hung from the neck. I had to throw your food away. You did what? It was spoiled, she said with a shrug. It smelled awful. It was contaminating my refrigerator. You know how it is. When things mix, everything ends up smelling bad. That food was fine. I bought it 2 days ago. Well, I smelled it, and it was rotten. She looked at me with those cold eyes. Besides, Clara, I already told you. If you want to store food, buy your own refrigerator, like I did. I looked at the garbage bag. There it was. My week's worth of food. $40 thrown in the trash. Something inside me broke. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't explosive. It was silent. Like when a rope that has been stretched too long breaks. It just snapped. Where is Robert? I asked in a hollow voice. In the living room, why? I didn't answer. I walked to the living room. My son was lying on the couch looking at his phone, beer in hand, the third empty bottle on the coffee table. Robert. He looked up. What is it, Mum? Your wife threw my food in the trash. Oh, yeah, she told me. It was spoiled. It was not spoiled. Mum. He sighed as if I were a spoiled child. If Catherine says it was bad, it was bad. She knows about those things. She knows? I felt my voice cracking. I've been buying groceries for 40 years. I think I know when something is rotten. Enough, don't start. He stood up, swaying a little. He was drunk. I'm tired of your scenes. My scenes? The words came out like knives. My scenes? Robert, you threw away food worth $40 that I earned working, while you are sitting here drinking beer that I paid for. You didn't pay for this beer. Catherine bought it. With what money, Robert? With what money does Catherine buy things if she doesn't work? That's not your problem. Of course it's my problem. You live in my house, you eat my food, you use my utilities. Enough, he yelled. For the first time in years, my son yelled at me. I'm sick of it, sick of everything having to be about you, your house, your food, your money. We get it. You did everything. You are the great martyr, the saintly mother who sacrificed everything. The words hit me like fists. Robert, no. I'm tired, Mum. I'm tired of feeling guilty for existing, of feeling like I owe you every breath because you worked so hard. I didn't ask to be born. I didn't ask for Dad to die. Those were your decisions, not mine. The silence that followed was unbearable. Catherine appeared in the doorway. She had a small, victorious smile. I looked at my son, at that 32-year-old man with eyes red from alcohol and rage, and I didn't recognize him. The boy who hugged my legs when he had nightmares. The teenager who brought me flowers on Mother's Day with his first paycheck. The young man who cried on my shoulder when his first girlfriend left him. That boy was gone. In his place was a stranger who hated me. Is that right? I said in a voice so low I barely heard myself. That's right. I turned around. I went up the stairs. I went into my room. I locked the door. And then, for the first time in my life, I felt like I couldn't breathe. Not physically, my lungs were working, but something deeper, something in the center of my chest, had closed off. I sat on the bed. I took out my phone. With trembling hands, I dialed my sister Mary's number. She lived in Chicago. We didn't see each other much, but we had always been there for each other. Clara, what happened? She answered, worried. It was 10 o'clock at night, and then I collapsed. I told her everything, between sobs, between hiccups, the labels, the messages, the loan, the food in the trash, Robert's words. She didn't interrupt. She just listened. When I finished, there was silence. "Clara," she finally said in a serious voice, "you have to get him out of your house. He's my son. He is an ingrate, and that woman is a viper. They are going to leave you with nothing, and when they do, they are going to leave, and you are going to be left alone, without a house, without money, without anything. But there are no buts, sister. I know you love him, but love cannot be so blind. Sometimes loving is letting them fall. It's the only thing that wakes them up." I cried harder. I can't do that to him." "Then prepare to lose everything, because that is what is going to happen." She hung up. I stayed there, alone, in the dark, with the phone in my hand. And for the first time, I thought something terrible. I thought, what if I leave? What if I leave them the house and I leave? It would be easier, less painful. I could rent a small room, work until I retired, die peacefully knowing that I didn't break my family. But then I remembered something. I remembered the day I bought this house. Robert was 12 years old. We had been renting a horrible apartment in a dangerous neighborhood for 2 years. But I had saved, dollar by dollar, for 5 years. The day I signed the deeds, I came home crying with happiness. "My son," I told him, "we have a house, a real house. No one can take it from us." He hugged me. He smelled like boys' soap and dreams. "No one, Mum. Not even if we don't pay rent?" "No one, because it's ours, yours and mine." I opened my eyes, yours and mine, not Catherine's, not her parents', not anyone else's. Mine. I got up. I dried my tears. I opened my nightstand drawer. I took out the folder where I had all the evidence, the photos, the documents, and I took out something else. The original house deeds, the ones I had recovered from Robert's room and kept in my room. I opened them. My name was there. Clara Ochoa, widow of Renteria, sole proprietor. I ran my fingers over the letters. 40 years of work, 40 years of pain, 40 years of sacrifice. It was all in this paper, and no one was going to take it from me. I took out my phone. I looked up the chat with Mr. Miller. I wrote, "Mr. Miller, I need to see you tomorrow morning. Urgent. We are going to speed everything up." "What happened, Mrs. Clara?" "I'm not waiting anymore. I want them out of my house next week." "Understood. Tomorrow, first thing. I'll prepare the documents." I put the phone away. I lay down. And this time I didn't cry, because the tears were gone. In their place was something harder, colder, determination. My son thought I was weak, that I would give up. But he forgot something. He forgot that women who raise children alone, who work 3 jobs, who endure the pain and stay standing, we don't break. We transform. And when they touch what we love the most, we become relentless. Robert was about to learn something I had taught him when he was a child. Every action has consequences, and his were just about to arrive. What I did Saturday morning made Catherine lose that smile forever. On Friday at 8 o'clock in the morning, I was sitting across from Mr. Miller. This time I was not shaking. I was not crying. I was firm as a rock. "Mrs. Clara, I prepared everything." He placed several documents on the desk. "Here is the eviction notice. Here is the lawsuit for the unpaid loan, $102,000 with interest. And here," he took out another paper, "the lawsuit for emotional distress and misuse of property. We estimate $25,000 extra." "Emotional distress?" I asked. "You have suffered psychological abuse in your own home, systematic humiliations. That has legal value. He looked at me seriously. If we take this to trial, we could win even more. But I warn you, it will be long, painful, and public. How long? 6 months, maybe a year. I shook my head. I don't have a year. I need them out now. Then we have another option. He leaned back in his chair. We confront them. We show them all the evidence. We make it clear that they either leave amicably or we destroy them legally. With the evidence you have, especially the illegal money, your son could face jail time. The word jail time hit me in the chest. I don't want him to go to jail. I know, but he doesn't have to know that. The lawyer leaned forward. Fear can be more effective than any trial. If he thinks he can go to prison, he will cooperate. And if he doesn't? Then we proceed with everything, without mercy. He paused. Ma'am, I know he is your son, but if you don't set boundaries now, they will destroy you. They will sell your house. They will leave you on the street. And they won't look back. I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. Let's do it. But I want to be present. I want to see their faces when they find out. Are you sure? Completely. I signed the papers. All of them. The eviction notice, the lawsuit for the loan, everything. The lawyer put them in a manila envelope. When do you want us to notify them? Tomorrow, Saturday morning, when they are home, relaxed, confident. He nodded slowly. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock. I will go personally with a process server. Will you be there? I will be there. That night, I arrived home earlier than usual. Catherine was in the living room painting her nails. Robert was asleep on the couch with his mouth open. Hello, I said. Catherine barely looked at me. Hi. I went up to my room, but not to hide. This time to plan. I took an old suitcase out of the closet. I started packing my most important things. Documents, photos, clothes, my hospital uniforms, everything I didn't want them to touch. Because tomorrow, after the notification, I didn't know what could happen. I put the suitcase under the bed. Then I did something I never did. I opened my jewelry box, the one my mother gave me before she died. Inside were a few things: a gold ring, my wedding earrings, a thin chain, and a photo. An old, faded photo of my husband, Michael, smiling, with baby Robert in his arms. I took it out. I looked at it for a long time. Forgive me, my love, I whispered. I know you wanted me to take care of our son, but I think taking care of him now means letting him go, letting him fall, so he can learn. I put the photo away. I closed the jewelry box. And that night, for the first time in weeks, I slept soundly. No nightmares, no tears, because there was nothing left to decide. The decision was made. On Saturday, I woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I showered. I put on my best clothes, black pants, a white blouse, closed-toe shoes. I fixed my hair. I put on a little lipstick. I looked in the mirror, and I saw a different woman. She wasn't the exhausted nurse. She wasn't the humiliated mother. She was Clara Ochoa, owner of this house, woman who raised a son alone, woman who saved lives, woman who was not going to be trampled anymore. I went down to the kitchen. I made coffee. I made scrambled eggs. I warmed up tortillas. Robert came down with swollen eyes. What are you doing now? He asked, surprised. Making breakfast. Do you want some? Yeah. I served him. He ate in silence, looking at me out of the corner of his eye. Catherine came down half an hour later. She was wearing a pink silk robe, bare-faced. Without makeup, she looked younger, almost vulnerable. "Good morning," I said. "Good morning," she replied suspiciously. "What are we celebrating?" "Nothing. I just thought I'd make a nice breakfast." I served her too. "Sit down." She sat down, but didn't taste the food. "What do you want, Clara?" "Want? Nothing. Can't I make you breakfast?" "You can, but it's weird. You haven't spoken to us for weeks, and now, this." I smiled. Maybe I'm just tired of fighting. Robert and Catherine exchanged glances. At 9:30, my phone rang. It was Mr. Miller. "Ma'am, we are arriving." "Perfect. I'll open the door." I hung up. "Who was that?" Robert asked. "No one important." I got up. "I'm going to open it. I'm expecting a delivery." I went to the door. I opened it. There they were. Mr. Miller in his grey suit, and a younger man with a briefcase, the process server. "Good morning, Mrs. Clara." "Good morning, come in." They entered. Robert came out of the kitchen. "Who are you?" he asked. The lawyer spoke in a clear, professional voice. "Good morning. I am Mr. David Miller, litigation attorney. I am here to notify Robert Renteria Ochoa and Catherine Salinas of Renteria of a legal complaint filed by Mrs. Clara Ochoa, widow of Renteria." The silence that followed was absolute. Catherine appeared in the kitchen doorway. "A complaint? What are you talking about?" The process server took the documents out of the briefcase. "Robert Renteria Ochoa is hereby notified of 1-termed immediate eviction from the property located at 847 Park Avenue, Upper East Side, New York. 2. Lawsuit for non-payment of a loan documented before a public notary. Total amount owed, $102,000. 3. Lawsuit for emotional distress and misuse of private property. Estimated amount, $25,000. Robert turned pale. "Mum, what is this?" "This," I said in a firm voice, "is the end." Catherine snatched the papers from the process server's hands. "This is crazy. You can't sue us. We're your family." "Family," I repeated the word as if it were poison. "Family that put labels on my own food. Family that planned to sell my house. Family that threw $40 worth of food in the trash." "Mom, wait." Robert took a step towards me. "We can talk. You don't have to do this." "There's nothing left to talk about, Robert. You had months to talk. You had 1,000 opportunities to treat me like your mother, and you chose to treat me like garbage." "It's not true. I love you." "You love me." The laugh that came out of me sounded bitter. "You loved me so much that you told your wife to convince me to sell my house. You loved me so much that you told me to look for another place to live. You loved me so much that you yelled that you didn't ask to be born." He was silent. The lawyer continued. "You have 72 hours to vacate the property. If you do not do so voluntarily, we will proceed with judicial eviction. Furthermore, Mr. Robert has 30 days to respond to the loan lawsuit. Otherwise, we will proceed with the seizure of assets." "We have nowhere to go," Catherine yelled. "That is not my client's problem," the lawyer replied coldly. "You have family, you have options, but you no longer have the right to be here." "You are an awful woman," Catherine spat at me. "A bitter old woman who can't stand to see her son happy." I looked her straight in the eyes. "No, I am a woman who will no longer allow herself to be trampled in her own house." I turned around, went up the stairs. Behind me I heard shouting, crying, pleading. I closed my bedroom door, sat on the bed and breathed. For the first time in months, I truly breathed, because the weight I had carried for so long had finally been lifted. I was no longer their victim. I was their judge. But what I found at my door 3 hours later made me doubt everything. 3 hours after the lawyer left, everything was silent, a thick, dangerous silence. I stayed in my room, listening, waiting. I heard hurried footsteps, doors slamming, Catherine crying, Robert talking on the phone in a desperate voice. And then nothing. I looked out the window. Robert's car was still in the driveway. They hadn't left. I went down the stairs carefully. The living room was empty, the kitchen too. Then I saw something on the refrigerator door. A note, written in Robert's handwriting. "Mum, we went to Catherine's parents' house. We'll come back tomorrow to talk. Please, reconsider. We are family, don't do this." I tore up the note, crumpled it, threw it in the trash. Family. How easy it was to use that word when it was convenient. I spent the rest of Saturday cleaning, taking off all the yellow labels, one by one, with rage, with satisfaction. Every label I tore off was a piece of dignity I recovered. I cleaned out Catherine's refrigerator. I emptied it completely. I threw all her food in the trash. I felt a dark pleasure doing it. Now you know how it feels, I thought. That night, I slept with the door locked. Sunday dawned cloudy, grey. I got up early, made coffee, and sat in the kitchen to wait. I knew they would return, and I was right. At 10 o'clock in the morning, I heard the car, voices, the door opening. They came in. Robert, Catherine, and her parents. All four of them. Mr. George came forward, his face red with anger. "Where is she?" he shouted. "Here I am," I said, coming out of the kitchen. He saw me and advanced towards me with his finger raised. "Who do you think you are to sue my daughter? I am the owner of this house, and your daughter is an abuser." "My daughter is not an abuser. You are the one who doesn't know how to live with people." "Mr. George," I said with a calm I didn't know I had, "your daughter put labels on my own food, in my own house. She threw my food in the trash. She treated me like garbage. And you? You told me to go to a retirement home so they could keep my house." "Nobody said that, Mrs. Deese," Nancy intervened. "Of course you did. Here, in this living room 2 weeks ago. We were looking for options, for your own good." "For my own good," I repeated. "Selling my house is for my own good. Putting me in a home and leaving me with crumbs is for my own good." "That house is worth $500,000, Catherine yelled. "We weren't going to leave you with nothing." "Ah," I nodded. "You were going to leave me $120,000, as your note says. The one I found, where you calculated how much you would keep after selling my house." She fell silent. "What note?" Robert asked. "The note your wife wrote in an apartment flyer, where she planned to steal $380,000 from my own house." "It's not stealing," Catherine murmured. "We were going to give you your share." "My share?" The rage rose in my throat. "My share of my house? Are you listening to yourself?" Mr. George stepped in between us. "Look, Mrs. Clara, I know you are upset, but we can fix this without lawyers, without scenes, like civilized people." "I don't want to fix anything anymore." "Don't be stubborn," he yelled. "If this goes to trial, everyone loses." "Not me. I have all the evidence, messages, documents, witnesses." I looked at them one by one. "And I have something else, something I discovered this week." Robert turned pale. "Mum, no." "Your son," I said, looking at Mr. George, "is receiving illegal money, deposits from a shell company, tax fraud. If the IRS finds out, he goes to jail." The silence was absolute. "That's a lie," said Catherine, but her voice trembled. "It's not a lie. I have the bank statements. An accountant has already reviewed them, and if this goes to trial, that information will come to light." Robert slumped onto the sofa. "Mum, I didn't know. A friend offered me that job. I only signed invoices. I didn't know it was illegal." "But you signed, and you received the money, and you spent it." My voice was ice. "In hotels, in expensive restaurants, on clothes for your wife, while you told me you didn't have money to pay the electricity bill." "Stop!" Catherine yelled. "Stop playing the victim. You are the one destroying this family." "I didn't destroy anything. You did, label by label, humiliation by humiliation." "They were just labels. It's not a big deal." "They weren't just labels," I shouted for the first time, and my voice echoed throughout the house. "They were a message that I no longer mattered, that in my own house I was a stranger, that everything I built, everything I worked for, everything I sacrificed was worth nothing." The silence that followed was deafening. "You have until Tuesday to leave my house," I said in a firm voice. "If you don't, the police will come, the sheriff will come, and they will take you out by force, with all your belongings on the street, for the neighbors to see." "Mom, please." Robert knelt in front of me, tears rolling down his cheeks. "Please don't do this. I'm your son, your only son." Something broke in my chest seeing him like that, but I didn't back down. "Precisely because you are my son, Robert. Because I love you. I have to do this." I crouched down to his level. "I spent your whole life saving you. From your illnesses, from your debts, from your mistakes, and the only thing I achieved was making you believe that there would always be someone to clean up your messes." "It's not true." "Yes, it is, and you know it." I wiped a tear away. "You are 32 years old. You don't work. You live on borrowed time. Your wife doesn't work. And you plan to sell my house to continue living without responsibilities. What kind of life is that?" "The one we could have." "No, the one I allowed you to have. But it's over." I stood up. "It's time for you to grow up, son. And if that means losing you, I accept it." "You're a monster," Catherine yelled. "No, I'm a mother who won't allow herself to be used anymore." Mr. George took a step forward. "This is not going to end here. We are going to hire a lawyer. We are going to fight." "Perfect," I replied. "My lawyer is waiting for you, but I warn you, every day you spend here after Tuesday, I will sue you for damages, $300 a day, plus the $102,000 from the loan, plus the $25,000 for emotional distress. Do the math." "You have no heart," Mrs. Nancy whispered. "I did, but you shattered it. Now I only have dignity, and that you are not going to take from me." I turned around and went up the stairs. Behind me I heard crying, shouting, curses. I closed my bedroom door. I sat on the bed, and the tears I had held back finally came out. Not of sadness, but of liberation, because finally I was free. But what happened Monday night would change everything and make me see my son with different eyes. Monday was the longest day of my life. I went to the hospital early, a 12-hour shift. I needed to be far away. I needed air. My colleagues noticed that something was wrong. Patricia took me to the cafeteria during the break. "Clara, you look awful. What happened?" "I did what you told me. I sued them. I got them out of my house." She hugged me. "You did the right thing." "Then why do I feel so bad?" "Because he is your son. And even though he hurt you, he is still your son." She squeezed my hands. But remember, sometimes letting someone fall is the only way for them to learn to get up on their own. I returned home at 8 o'clock in the evening. Robert's car was gone. I opened the door with a racing heart. The house was silent. But something was different. I went into the living room. Boxes. Boxes everywhere. Folded clothes, objects wrapped in newspaper. They were packing. I went up the stairs. Robert's bedroom door was open. Catherine was there, putting clothes in a suitcase. She saw me and stopped. "Happy?" she said in a dry voice. "We're leaving now. Is that what you wanted?" I wanted respect. It wasn't too much to ask. Respect. She let out a bitter laugh. "You know what? You're right. We're leaving. And you know what else? I'm going to take your son far away from you. Robert makes his own decisions." "Oh, really?" She crossed her arms. "Don't be so sure. Because I value him. I believe in him. Not like you, who only reminds him of everything you did for him, as if it were an eternal debt." Her words hit me. "I never made him feel that. Of course you did. Every time you speak. I worked, I paid, I sacrificed. Do you know what that does to a person? It makes him feel like he will never be enough, that he will never be able to pay you back for what you did." I was silent. "That's why he drinks. That's why he can't get a job. Because he's so afraid of disappointing the great Clara Ochoa, the woman who did everything alone, that he prefers not to try. Isn't that right?" "Yes, it is. And deep down you know it. But it's easier to blame me, to make me the villain, when the truth is that you kept him that way. Dependent. Useless. Because if he grew up, he wouldn't need you anymore. And you need to be needed." I felt the floor moving. "Get out of my house," I whispered. "With pleasure." She left the room, pushing my shoulder as she passed. I stood there, in the hallway, breathing heavily. Was she right? Was all this my fault? I went down the stairs like a zombie. I went into the kitchen. I sat at the table. And then I heard the front door open. It was Robert. He came in alone, without Catherine. His eyes were red. "Mum, I need to talk to you." "There is nothing to—" "Please." His voice cracked. "Just listen to me. 5 minutes." I nodded without looking at him. He sat across from me. "You are right about everything," he said. "About everything. I'm useless, an ingrate, a terrible son. I know. Catherine left me an hour ago. She told me that if I didn't convince you to withdraw the lawsuit, she was leaving. I told her I couldn't ask you that. And she left." He wiped his eyes. "Her parents came for her. She told me that when I grew up and was a real man, I should call her. But that as long as I lived off my mum, she didn't want anything to do with me." I felt a bitter satisfaction. "I'm sorry," he continued. "I'm sorry I was so weak, so cowardly. I'm sorry I yelled that I didn't ask to be born. It was the most horrible thing I've ever said in my life." Tears started to fall down my cheeks. "Mum, I did ask to be born, because having you as a mother was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I ruined everything." "Robert, no, let me finish." He took a deep breath. "That money from the invoices, I did know it was wrong. Not at first, but later I did. And I kept doing it because it was easy, because it was quick money, and because Catherine wanted things. And I wanted her to see me as someone successful. Son, I'm going to pay back the money. I don't know how, but I'm going to do it. And I'm going to leave your house. Not because you force me to, but because it's the right thing to do. because I have to learn to stand on my own 2 feet. He looked me in the eyes. But will you let me stay for a week? Just one, to look for a job, to find a room, and then I'll leave. I wanted to tell him no, that it was too late, that the damage was done, but he was my son, and despite everything, he was still my son. 1 week, I said, but under my rules. Whatever they are. No alcohol. You look for work every day. You pay me something for the room, even if it's just $150, and you go to therapy. Therapy? Yes, because Catherine was right about one thing. You and I have things to fix, and we can't do it alone. He was silent for a moment. It's okay. I'll do it. And about the loan. I took out my phone, called Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller, this is Clara. I want you to freeze the loan lawsuit. Don't withdraw it. Just leave it paused to see what happens. Are you sure? Yes, understood. And the eviction? I looked at Robert. Also on pause. 1 week. As you order. I hung up. Robert looked at me with eyes full of tears. Thank you, Mum. Show me. He nodded. He got up to leave, but he stopped at the door. Mum, why? Why? After everything I did to you, do you keep giving me chances? I looked at him, and for the first time in days, I felt something warm in my chest. Because that is what mothers do, son. Not because it is easy, not because it is fair, but because love, true love, doesn't give up. But it also doesn't allow itself to be trampled. And that is the difference you have to learn. He stayed there, in the doorframe. And for the first time in years, I saw something in his eyes that I had lost. I saw the child I knew, the boy who hugged me when he was scared, the boy who promised to take care of me when he grew up. That boy was still there, buried under layers of mistakes and lies. But he was there, and for the first time, I had hope. Not that everything would be fixed overnight, but that maybe not everything was lost. The next 3 days were strange. Robert kept his word. He got up early, he printed resumes, he went out to look for work. I watched him from a distance, and slowly, very slowly, we started talking. Not about the labels, not about Catherine, not about the past. We just talked, like we hadn't done in years. On Thursday, he came home with good news. Mum, I got a job at a hardware store. It's not much, but it's a start. I felt pride, genuine pride. That's wonderful, son. That night we cooked together. I made rice. He prepared the chicken, like when he was a teenager and helped me in the kitchen. And while we ate, he told me something that broke my heart. Mum, I found a room, downtown. It's small, but my salary is enough for it. When are you moving? Monday. That is, if you want me to leave. I looked at him. Do you want to leave? Yes, I think I need to. Because if I stay, I'll fall into the same patterns. I need to learn to live alone, to pay for my things, to be responsible. I nodded, even though something in me was breaking. It's okay. Can I come visit you? On Sundays? Always. This is still your house, but now on different terms. He smiled, a sad but real smile. Thank you, Mum. And in that moment, I knew I had done the right thing, that letting him fall had been the only way for him to learn to fly. But what happened on Sunday, the day before he left, was the real closure we both needed. Sunday dawned with bright sunshine. Robert got up early. I heard him in the kitchen making coffee. I went downstairs. He was there, looking out the window. "Good morning," I said. He turned around. He had something in his hand, an envelope. "Good morning, Mum. I need to give you this." He handed me the envelope. I opened it. Inside was money, bills of $20 and $50. I quickly counted. $500. "What is this?" "It's what I owe you for this week. $150 for the room, and $350 as the first payment on my debt." "Robert, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." His voice was firm. "I owe you $102,000, right? With interest." "Well, I'm going to pay you. I don't know how long it will take me, maybe years, but I'm going to do it." I felt a lump in my throat. "Son, and I also want to give you this." He took a folded paper out of his pocket. "It's a payment plan. I made it with an accountant I met. I can pay you $500 a month. I'll be paid off in 18 years. 18 years? I looked at the paper. Everything was calculated, date by date, payment by payment. "Robert, you are 32 years old. In 18 years, you will be 50. "I know, but it's my responsibility, and I'm going to fulfill it." He paused. "Because that's how you taught me, that debts are paid, that promises are kept. And I broke many promises, Mum, but I'm not going to break this one." Tears streamed down my cheeks. I hugged him and he hugged me back, like when he was a child, like when he was scared, like when he needed me. Only now it was different. Now he didn't need me to save him. He hugged me because he loved me. And that changed everything. That afternoon I helped him pack his last things. As we folded clothes, he said, "You know, Catherine texted me yesterday." I looked up. What did she want? "She asked if you had withdrawn the lawsuit. I told her no, that you were right, that I had been an idiot." He smiled bitterly. "She told me I was a loser, that I would never amount to anything, and that she hoped I'd rot in my mum's house forever." "I'm sorry, son." "Don't be, because she was right about one thing. I was a loser, but I don't want to be anymore. And if to stop being one, I have to lose her, then so be it." I sat on the bed. "Do you miss her?" "Sometimes. But more than her, I miss who I thought I was when I was with her." He closed the suitcase. "I thought I was important, successful, but it was a lie. It was all money that wasn't mine, a house that wasn't mine, a life that wasn't mine. And now? Now I have a 10 by 10 room, a hardware store job, and a debt of $102,000. He let out a laugh. "But it's mine. It's my life. For the first time in years." I felt pride, deep and real. "Your father would be proud." He was silent, his eyes filled with tears. "Do you think so?" "I know so, because your father also made mistakes, many of them, but he always got back up. He always tried, and that's what you are doing." He wiped his tears. "Can I confess something to you? For years I hated you. Not all the time, but sometimes I did. Because you were always perfect. The perfect nurse, the perfect mother, the one who did everything right. And I could never measure up. I was always the son who needed help, the sick son, the son who cost money. Son. And when I met Catherine, she made me feel sufficient, like I didn't have to be perfect, like I could just be." He took a deep breath. "But the truth is, she didn't love me. She loved what I could give her. And when I couldn't give her any more, she left. Not all women are like that." "I know." Because you are not like that. You could have left. You could have let me fall when I started all this. But you didn't. You gave me one last chance. And that, Mum, no one else would have done that. He hugged me again. And in that hug was everything: forgiveness, pain, love, hope. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the moving truck arrived. Well, it wasn't really a truck. It was a friend's pickup truck that Robert had hired for $50. Between the two of us, we loaded his things. There weren't many. A disassembled bed, boxes of clothes, some furniture. The neighbours watched us from their windows. Mrs. Jones, from next door, came out. "Is the young man leaving, Clara?" "Yes, Mrs. Jones. He's going to live on his own." "Oh, that's good. It was about time. A man has to stand on his own 2 feet." She looked at Robert. "Keep up the good work, honey, and visit your mother often. She needs you." "I will, Mrs. Jones, I promise." When we finished loading everything, Robert stood in front of the house, looking at it, as if he were seeing it for the first time, or the last. "I grew up here," he said softly. "I took my first steps here. I had nightmares here, and you calmed me down. I ate breakfast here before going to school every day for 20 years. He turned to me. "This house is my history, and I'm going to miss it. It will always be here, and so will I. I know, but it won't be the same. And that's okay, because it's what I need." He got into the truck. "I'll see you Sunday, okay? We'll eat together. I'll wait for you here. I'll make your favorite food. Turkey chili? Whatever you want." He smiled. He closed the truck door and drove away. I stayed there, standing on the sidewalk, watching him leave. And when the truck turned the corner and disappeared, something inside me let go. I cried, but not out of sadness, out of relief. Because finally I had let go of my son. Not because I didn't love him, but because loving him meant letting him grow up, even if it hurt, even if it left me alone. 6 months later. I am sitting in my living room. My house is silent, but it is no longer a heavy silence. It is a peaceful silence. Robert comes every Sunday as he promised. Sometimes he brings food. Sometimes we cook together. He tells me about his job, his colleagues, how he is saving money. He has already paid me $3,000 of his debt, in small, constant payments. Last week he told me something that filled my heart. "Mum, I met someone. Her name is Laura. She works at the bakery on the corner from my room. She's a good person. Not like, well, you know." "And what does Laura do?" "She works. She studies business administration at night. She wants to open her own business someday." He smiled. "I like that she has her own dreams, that she doesn't need me to solve her life for her. I would like to meet her. I'll bring her soon, but slowly. I'm taking things slowly now." And that gave me more joy than anything else. Catherine tried to come back 3 months ago. She showed up at the door, crying, saying she had made a mistake, that she loved Robert, that I should forgive him. But Robert told her something I will never forget. "I have nothing to forgive you for. You taught me something important. You taught me that love is not labels on a refrigerator. It's not staying with someone because it's comfortable. It's choosing to be there every day. And you didn't choose me. You chose my house, my money, my comfort. And when that was gone, you left too. So thank you." But no. She left crying, and Robert came back inside. He hugged me. "Thank you for not letting me fall into the same trap." "I didn't do anything. You saved yourself." "No, I did it because you taught me. through blows, through lawsuits, through pain, but you taught me. Today is Sunday. I made turkey chili, Robert's favorite. I also invited Patricia and my sister Mary, who came from Chicago. Robert arrived with Laura, a pretty girl, with warm eyes and a shy smile. "Mom, this is Laura." "Nice to meet you, Mom. Robert has told me a lot about you." "I hope good things." "Only good things," she said sincerely. "He told me how you saved him, not only when he was a child, but now too." "I didn't save him. He saved himself." Robert looked at me. "No, Mom, you saved me by letting me fall. It was the shock I needed to wake up." We ate together. We laughed. We talked. And at that table, surrounded by my son, who had finally found his way, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had finally done the right thing. I loved my son enough not to save him anymore, and in that act of tough love, of love that hurts but heals, I truly saved him. That night, after everyone left, I sat in my living room. I looked around. There were no more yellow labels. There was no more tension. There was no more hatred. There was only a house. My house. The house I bought with my effort. The house I defended with my dignity. And I realized something. True wealth is not in what you own. It is in what you don't allow them to take from you. Your dignity, your respect, your self-love. No one can take that from you unless you allow it. And I was never going to allow it again. If this story touched your heart, leave me a comment telling me where you are watching us from. Like this if you believe there are times when loving is letting go. And subscribe to keep listening to real stories of women who did not surrender to injustice. Because true strength is not in putting up with everything. It is in knowing when to say, enough is enough, and getting back up, again and again, until dignity is yours again.